Okay, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I just want to introduce myself. I am Crystal Williams. May I ask you your name?
Joy Porter Blunt, licensed professional counselor.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Blunt. I really appreciate you allowing me to interview you. First, I have to get permission from you to be able to do this to conduct this interview. So, would you give me your permission to do this interview?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Blunt. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you a few questions here, just basically about your job. And if you could just tell me first, what is your position?
Um, Currently, I work as an outpatient therapist at Empowerment Counseling Center in Chesapeake, Virginia. And I also work for Family Systems Incorporated as an intensive in-home worker and mental health skill building worker.
Okay. Well, if you could tell me a little bit about, I understand about the outpatient therapist, but if you could tell me a little bit more about the position that you have at Family Services, just a brief summary of what you do there.
Well, Family Systems in Norfolk, Virginia. I've been there for 16 years, since March 2003. I would say since 2008, I've done assessments under Medicaid guidelines. I'm sure pushing 500 assessments to date. And that would have been for in-home services, for mental health skill building, and for therapeutic day treatment. Specific role with the assessment process is to make sure that a client would meet eligibility criteria under Medicaid guidelines to receive the services. In the home and in the community, I work as an individual and family counselor, and that would be for home-based services. Now, for mental health skill building, that's a little bit more hands-on, helping adults with what we call activities of daily living skills. And so any day would include, for an adult, helping them to get to work, helping them with daily decision making. It could be helping them to advocate for themselves. So that's kind of gist at Family Systems.
Okay. Well, if you could just briefly tell me what a typical day would be like for you now that you are doing both jobs together.
So for me, I work 2 full-time jobs, and I guess most counselors would not do that. Some counselors may even say that's not mentally healthy, but nonetheless, that is my day. I may start off at 7 to 8 p.m. I would see a 15-year-old autistic teenager who refuses to go to school, and I would help her with her morning routine and get her to school at 8:15 a.m. Then I may see one of my adult clients under mental health skill building and maybe help them with the ADLs, making sure that they have started their day off right with personal hygiene, meal planning, helping them to plan out their week or their day. It may sound simple to the average person, but when a person has been hospitalized and their baseline of functioning may be less than the average person. Mm-hmm. So just taking it step by step with them. Then maybe around 11 or 12 noon, I may come out to ECC and do outpatient therapy. Sometimes I actually spread out my day. I may see clients, let's say from 12 to 4, and then I might go see a client from 4:30 until 6 and come on back and finish out. Wow. So by the time I normally finish a day, it may be about 9 o'clock. So
wow.
So again, I think I'm on a different spectrum from the average person.
Absolutely, I would think so. That's a lot on your plate. And is that 7 days a week, 6 or 7 days a week?
6 days. Today, you caught me right at the time where I just finished up outpatient. I started at 9. So I had a 9, 10, 11, 12. Then I had a 2 and a 3 o'clock session, but my 3 o'clock kind of lasted until about 5:15. So my time is 6:16 p.m. So yeah, but this would be considered kind of a short day.
Wow.
Because I may see clients all the way till about 9 p.m.
Wow, that's amazing. That you're still sitting there with your head standing, with your head on your upright on your neck.
My hair
right
is
there,
holding my head up. My hair is holding it up.
Okay, that's a lot going on there. Well, what can you tell me that you mostly like about your job here?
Well, I love the aspect of meeting a person at their potential to change. Of course, seeing a client who is insightful and motivated to change is always a big plus to me. But of course, people are on different spectrums when it comes to the stages of change. So, of course, you got denial, you have contemplative stage, you have preparation for change. Stage 4 would be the actual change, and then the 5th stage would be maintenance. So, of course, if a person is at stage 4 and 5, it makes it all the better, because they are changing or they're maintaining the change. That's always a big plus to me. Yeah.
That seems like it would be to get to that point. Is it often that you are able to get to those stages with your clients?
Sometimes, but oftentimes counseling can be imposed on a person. They didn't ask for it, but like the circumstance would cause them to have to face counseling. And so if I'm seeing someone in stage 1 denial, maybe it was forced upon them. From CPS, for example, or family says you have to get counseling. So I have seen some people move forward as I've built a therapeutic rapport, and they've been able to realize the need. But I would say on a percentage basis, I would say half and half at this point. Half of the people that I work with are either changing and they just need some guidance, mm-hmm. or they're trying to maintain that change.
Well, I think that's, positive. Just to say half and half, because a lot of people, they're not at that stage in their life, especially if they're being made to do something. They're not, to make somebody do something, that means they really didn't want to do it. So for you to have, be able to change that and get to those stages that is of, a person wanting to have change is really good. So that's wonderful. How about the least? What would be the least thing that you like about your job?
I think the politics behind the counseling process. There used to be a time that counseling was purely clinical. You just sit on the couch and you receive help, and you just go with it. But nowadays, insurance guidelines and just the way society views mental health, people are forced to take on certain diagnoses in order to receive services. Used to be a time where it was considered preventive, to keep people from having further problems. But it appears, at least for home base and for mental health skill building, you have to have already been in the hospital or already have been incarcerated in order to be eligible to receive services. And so by the time you cross over that critical line of demarcation, I just think that a lot of people are in despair. They're very frustrated. They may not know how to begin to change. And so from that standpoint, I just kind of disagree with the politics of mental health nowadays.
I understand that. That seems like a lot. I didn't even know it. You had to go through those different things just to receive help. So, wow, that's crazy. But okay. So also, if you could just tell me what education or training that you had to go through in order to qualify for your position, any type of certifications or licensing requirements. If you could just tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I had to have my bachelor's in I would say psychology or human services or social work. Okay, you have to definitely go under one of those categories with your bachelor's. And so for me, I completed with psychology. In order to be a licensed therapist, you have to have your master's. So, and going through school, you have to go through, and now for LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor, you have to go through a school that is considered KCREP, and that is an accreditation type of counsel, specifically for counseling related programs. So that's very important because for the state of Virginia, I don't know about the state of Arizona or other states, but Virginia, the Board of Counseling is very specific about where you get your degree. And so I went to Regent University. And then, of course, with the supervision in the state of Virginia, you have to have 4,000 hours of supervision. And so I think out of the 4,000, then you have to have 200 hours of the direct supervision by a person who is an accredited or accepted counseling supervisor. Okay. So it took me much longer to do that, and that was mainly by choice. But the average person, I would guess, they would require about 2.5 to 3 years of supervision before they are considered a licensed therapist, along with taking the test.
All right, I understand that. Well, with your schedule, and your lengthy days, I can understand why you may have, just waited, that extra time. So I understand that. If you could tell me a little bit about what attracted you to do this type of work.
Well, I do believe in, I believe that even if I was not, paid to do this, I'm just kind of cut a certain way. I do believe in helping people. I believe in meeting people where they truly are, and listening to the story that they have, helping them to make sense of their world. So I find a lot of pleasure in that. I'm definitely a one-on-one person, so it just kind of fit the bill for me.
So have you ever experienced or wanted to branch out doing any type of group counseling?
I think that group counseling would be very interesting, but I would still want to know each person one-on-one. I would be I think that for my personality, I would feel sort of awkward not knowing anyone in the group and watching how the group evolves to see how people respond. I think that therapeutic rapport is very important to me, and in a group setting, I may not have the opportunity to build the therapeutic rapport with someone who, say, might be a little more guarded or quiet than other people. So if I were to do a group session, I would want to know each person one-on-one already.
Okay, I understand that. Okay. All right. So in your profession, can you tell me how would one advance in your company? I know that maybe in the outpatient that wouldn't apply, but in family systems, is there room for advancement?
Well, the advancement would mainly be to be a supervisor. And the Board of Counseling in Virginia have already defined who can do that. There used to be a time that anybody could be considered a counselor. but the Board of Counseling has screened a lot down, where at one time, people who were doing home base, they had education degrees, they were in computer science even, but they were great at what they did. But now the Board of Counseling has, in the last 2-3 years actually, they have defined who can be considered a supervisor, who can even be considered a counselor. So in order to be promoted or to grow, I think that the bottom line is having your license.
So with those changes that occurred, the change as far as what degree that you're able to have, has that the staff been able to, did it lessen the staff, or has it become stable?
Absolutely. In fact, back in 2008, there was a major wave of audits. It must have been a task force sent from Richmond, because they were going head on against home-based agencies back in 2008. I remember that year very vividly. They were hitting on those assessments. At that time, I had not started doing the assessments. In fact, I had just started my supervision process for licensure. And they were critiquing harshly critiquing assessments that were either not good or people who were not licensed. And if that assessment was kicked back, it didn't matter how that case went. If the one who was assigned to work with that case was not credentialed the way the Board of Counseling wanted it to be, or if that assessment was not done up to its liking, that whole case was thrown out. And there were a lot of agencies that had to shut down because they had to pay money back from old assessments. So there was a lot of cleaning house. I remember that there were, I would say from 2008 to about maybe 2011.
Wow.
It looked like they were giving people who had education degrees or criminal justice degrees, and they were giving them a certain amount of time to get themselves together and to have a counseling degree. And of course, some people, they just would be tired and they didn't want to go back to school. And it was sad, but we had been cut down. Our staff had been cut down tremendously. And so I knew that I had to begin working towards my license. And still took me a little bit, but it was sad to see that there were good people who had to go.
So that must have really increased everybody else's, whoever were, able to stay and had the degrees. It had to increase their load, their caseloads.
Yes, the morale was very despondent. I remember at Family Systems in 2008, the morale was very despondent. And I had to take a major pay cut because of the money that had to be paid back from those audits.
Oh, wow.
But I believed at that time, I remember telling my boss that I can begin doing some assessments. And at that time, she had an opening with Brunswick County out in Lawrenceville, Virginia. There were social services out there. They said that they didn't have any counselors out there. So, but there were no assessors who would be willing to go out 3 hours away, 2-3 hours away and do assessments. So I told her that I would do them. And that was my first time in 2008 when I began doing my own assessments. Wow. For my cases. And from that point on, that's kind of how it went. Yeah.
Well, did you get any, because my next question was, do you receive any bonuses for your performance? Did you get anything, did you get paid extra for, taking that long drive to and from?
No, there was no bonus for that. There was a offer from the boss. There were like maybe 5 or 6 of us that she had asked to go out there, and she was supposed to have a hotel midway, maybe an Emporia somewhere. She was going to have it so that we would be able to go and stay, like maybe from Monday through Wednesday, half of our staff would stay at the hotel. And then, of course, Thursday through Saturday, the other half, that never quite panned out. As far as with bonuses, no, I do recall maybe in 2000, it might have been 2008. It was, yeah, in 2008, she did give me one bonus check, and it was substantial. It was $3,000. And I mean, I was like, wow. That was before the audits, though. Okay. So you know the rest of that.
Okay, so after that, there were no more bonuses. You had to.
No more bonuses. Just being able to have my job and keep things going was enough.
Okay. So that's good information to know. Well, if you could just, I want to ask, what is the base annual salary for when you started? I wouldn't, I'm not asking for what you're doing now, but what is the base salary of, when you first started at Family Systems of, what you...
The base salary, there were two rates based upon the type of case. If I had a case that was paid by the city, I made $16 an hour. If I had a case that was funded by Medicaid, then that was $18 an hour.
Wow. Okay. So, just moving on away from the financial part of the job, because this is the kind of position or career choice that you would make, that you probably wouldn't do it for the, specifically for the money, because you're doing far more than what you're, actually worth. Because, it seems like your caseloads were very, they were a lot. It was a lot. So, now, would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. It takes a lot of drive to do home base. Some people critique it because you're using your car, and that's a disclaimer. When you're doing home base, you're using your car and you're driving, and you're paying for your gas. Some places may give you a few cents on a mile, but I'm sure it's not that substantial. And sometimes, in order to hold a session with some of these difficult clients, you may take them out to McDonald's, and that's out of your pocket. No need going back to the office and asking them for any incentives. So when you look at, even though, okay, this is $18 an hour, and that's considered a nice little check there if you look at it, but then when you look at the whole picture, it still goes down. The bottom line is, do you really like what you're doing? And I can say too that I would write off on my taxes my mileage. You have to choose if it's going to be your mileage for the year or gas and maintenance. So the type of mileage that I had, I always used that, and that was a nice write-off. And plus, doing home base, the incentive is that you can have it so that it looks like you're a contracted worker, or sort of like a business type of, it's a different type of way that you're filing. Okay. So that was a big plus too. But yeah, at the end of the day, you got to pay bills.
Absolutely.
And you have things going on. And when you see a client and it's a matter of having a session with them and get them a cheeseburger and fries, after a while, that does add up.
Absolutely.
By the end of the week.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's move on away from that. If you can just give me the top 2 personality traits that someone would need to have in order to do this job well.
Well, I believe in order to be a good counselor, I think that genuineness is a big one. I think that clients know if you're a genuine person or not. Not so much that they manipulate, nothing like that, but if you're asking a client to open up, you want them to build a good therapeutic rapport with you, and then the authenticity has to be there. And most clients are going to know whether or not they're with someone who's judging them, someone who's looking down on them, or they're looking at someone who actually cares about them. So I do believe genuineness is big. The second one is I do believe that in order to see a person the right way, you have to think in terms of a servant. And serving doesn't mean a slave. It doesn't mean that, again, that the client is in control of things and you don't have a sense of direction. But if you actually understand that how much it would take for a person to sit in that chair with you to open up, I would think it would touch your heart. And there should be some level of what can I help you with? What exactly do you need me to do with you? Okay. And that to me is a servant's heart.
Well, that would take being genuine to build a good rapport. That would definitely mean a lot. With a person, and especially serving, being a servant, because that's basically what you're doing. You're helping that person, getting through their problems. So I do understand that. Well, also, if you could describe your most meaningful work experience.
Well, I think just seeing a person who was ready for change. Are you speaking about a particular case that might stand out?
You can give me a particular case if you'd like, if that's something that was most meaningful to you in your work.
Well, I do recall one case. I have been working with her for a couple of years, under mental health skill building, and I don't think I've ever seen anybody's functioning to be where she was. She was literally, she needed somebody to prompt her, keep her calm, keep her coping, and she was trying to help a whole lot of people who were on the same level of functioning as she was. And there were times that she wasn't always allowing me to help her the way she needed. It almost burned me out, and I had stated to her towards the end of my work with her, I said, look, I'm going to refer you to another worker at a different agency. And shortly after I discharged her, about 2 months later, her house burned down, it left her homeless and left her stranded. And I ran into her a couple of weeks ago. She was distraught. And so it kind of just stands out to me about the value of mental health services, the importance of the support that a person needs.
Okay. Wow, that seems pretty tough. Some of those cases, I can understand how that would definitely hit you in a place, especially when you have a big heart and you are trying to do the best that you can to make an impact in someone's life, and something like that, life just happens to them and it's nothing that you or them could do. That must be. And how do you handle situations like that?
Well, at that particular day, we met over at a Walmart. So she was looking around trying to find which door would open because it was early in the morning. And so when I ran into her, she just fell into me, and I know that we're not supposed to touch.
Right.
And she fell right into me. Okay. So I told her, I guess she was looking to go to the restroom, trying to find a restroom, because she was sleeping outside that night, her and her son. So, I said to her, well, just sit here at the bench outside the bathroom. I'll be right back. Again, I know that there are ethics on how far a counselor should go, but I think with the type of service with mental health skill building. Um, I just felt that I would have felt remiss if I didn't get some food for her. I put it as it came from my church.
Right.
I, um, so I got her some food. Again, some people may raise their eyebrow to that, and they may feel that's unprofessional. I would have. I don't think I would have been able to sleep that night if I was so professional that I couldn't help her in her time of need at that time.
I understand that.
That's how I handled that.
Right. Well, I do know that, being, a outpatient therapist as well as a mental health builder and then a pastor, how are you able to balance those two? Because they kind of play together, but then they can be conflicting. Is that, do you ever
Skill building. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you ever see where those two, positions that you have, do they ever conflict?
Well, with outpatient therapy, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, you were going out a little bit, but yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. With outpatient therapy, the boundaries are a lot more clear. I can say if there would have been any question.
Okay, you're going out. Are you able to hear me?
Insurance had lapsed. Maybe they were. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
All right. Is everything okay?
Yeah, you had went out for a little bit. If you could start that part over.
All right. With the outpatient question. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes that happens with Zoom. It's like a delay for some reason.
Okay.
I would say with outpatient therapy, if there was ever any tweaking that I had to do, it would have been with the sliding scale. Okay. I had one family that needed a little leniency with the copay because the one who had the insurance, she had left from one job to another. And she said that when she moved into her other job, there was a 90-day probation period and she had to wait for her insurance. So normally at the agency, we're going to have at least $60 an hour. And there are people who pay $60 off their credit card or a health savings account. In her situation, she was transitioning to this new job and her money was not straight. So I told her that although normally we would charge 60, I would just charge them 25.
Oh,
now, I did that. I did. For a few months, I would say for a couple of months, because I was seeing them every week, every Saturday. So for about 3 months, it was during that probation period.
Right.
But then the office started talking to me about it, okay? Because when it comes to sliding scales, the money is not just given to you, the money is also given to the office.
Right.
So whatever is paid out, for example, $60 an hour, well, I get 36 and the office gets 24. So I had to the administrative side to that and accept the facts. So I worked it out with her and I said, look, how about you go ahead and pay $50 coming in every 2 weeks. So it was still 25 a week. And somehow she was able to come up with $50 every week. So
wow, yeah. That means that service was worth it to her, though. It was helpful. So that's good to know. Sometimes, that's just how it is when you find, someone that is truly there and that they're there for you and care about what happens to you. Really, that's that's worth the money. You know, you can't spend your money on anything more other than your, just to care for your physical and your mental health is very important. So,
Yes, and that's what she said.
absolutely. So, also, I just want to ask you a couple more questions because I know you're tired and I don't want to keep you. If you could just tell me the toughest decision that you had to make in the past, I would say about 6 months. What is the toughest decision that you had to make?
The toughest decision?
Yes.
Hmm. Really, the toughest decision at this point is what I'm faced with right now. I feel like I'm kind of splitting hairs. Working two full-time jobs, and I started at ECC in July. So I thought that everything would be kind of flowing smoothly. I was thinking maybe I would just be working with 20 or 25 outpatient therapy clients. And then that way I got 40 hours with family systems, 25 hours here. 65 to me is easy breezy. But now I'm doing more like 36 to 44 outpatient therapy clients here on top of the 40 hours there, and the paperwork. I'm still kind of faced with the decision of what I should do. So that's the only thing that stands out right now.
Right. I told you that's a lot. Yeah, I don't know how you're able to do it and take care of yourself as well, your personal needs. But, well, if you can also just tell me about a time you knew you were right, but you still had to follow guidelines. You had to follow the agency that you work for, their directions.
That would have been most clear with CPS cases. So home base. The agency is a contracted worker with social services. And so that's the case. Not to say that they're looking for you to be a pawn or that you will verify everything that they want you to do.
Right.
But sometimes you may pick up on a different spin on the case. And then...
Oh, you're going out a little bit.
Turn it. A lot of... Can
The Zoom
you hear me?
is going out. Are you able to hear
All
me?
right. Can you hear me at this?
I can hear you.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hold on. All right. Can you hear me at this point?
Yes. You can start.
Okay. I see where next to your name, if it's yellow, they're like bars. So if it's yellow, then I know not to speak. If it's white, then I know I can speak.
Okay, I'm sorry. The reception here is a little off. I apologize. But if you could just give me... Okay, thanks. If you could give me that last... If you could answer that last question for me.
Okay, so what I was saying was that would be that question would be more with the CPS case. Sometimes an agency may be a contracted worker with social services, and let's say if a case is given to you to offer counseling services to a family that is basically given due to a neglect or abuse issue. And so there may be a lot more that I would pick up on the family than just whatever the offense was. So let's say if a child was beat, and maybe there were some scratches, and all of that would be true. They have pictures of verified and everything. But then as I would get to know the family, I may see a lot of strengths. I may even have gotten a perspective that was different from how. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's yellow.
Okay, I hear you just fine.
Okay, all right. So they may pick up on something that is different from what I've seen in some conflict. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, it's going out a little bit. It's going out a little bit.
Are you able to? All right, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, so it may be different. The view that I may have may be different from social services.
Okay. Well, I do understand that, everybody has to work together. Do you have a good relationship with other agencies, CPS, social services, maybe even the courts? I know you have to come in contact with, pretty much a lot of people that's, involved in the child's life or making decisions on a child or another individual's life. Do you have good relationship, good rapport with them?
I believe so. It's been a very delicate blend with some agencies, especially with foster kids. There may be some administrative decisions between the foster care unit and other agencies involved. So I just try to encourage, active communication between everybody. Yeah, but I've learned to stay in my lane, to do what is mine to do, and that usually works.
Well, that's good. And I really appreciate you doing this interview with me, Joy. I know that you're tired and you're probably in the middle of clients and everything. I really hope that you're able to, take some time for yourself. And, I'm not exactly sure, how you're able to do that amongst everything that you have going on. On Sundays, you're pastor, and 6 days out of the week, you're doing outpatient and family services. But I definitely will be praying for you, and I wish you all the best. And like I said, I really appreciate you doing this with me.
So thank you very much, and you have a good one now.
Thank you.